Nope, apparently not. Try that again. The second time that's happened. I hope that's not a common thing. There we go. Want to turn those front lights off, Lane? All right. Now we're here. Hey everybody! I can actually see people hosting these events again. How nice is this? Just a couple of housekeeping things for everybody in the audience. That camera is broken. All right. Sorry to the people on the live stream. You'll just have to listen and we'll fix the camera up in a moment. Just a couple of housekeeping things if you've never been here before. And our thanks to CMD and the Mentor Group for hosting us this month and bringing us back in person. Toilets are out past the elevators and down to the right. The emergency exits are down that way as well, in case you need them. Hopefully that's not a thing we need to worry about. Cool. With that said, let's get back into how we do this. Well, at least the thing's updating. That's all right. So in the spirit of reconciliation, the Melbourne AWS user group acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This is what's on for tonight. You're all here to see all of our lovely faces again in person, I'm sure. So we've got the introductions, which we're doing now, clearly. And then Ian and Guy, Ian and JM, sorry, JM, that's a habit. Sorry, Guy. Yeah, Guy's dead to us. I'm still transitioning. It's all right. And then we have two speakers up tonight. Matt Gillard's taking us through talking AWS security with Security Hub and a few other words that I couldn't fit on my slide. We have the return of our marketplace segment again, which I'm sure everybody's thrilled about, which gives you, if you're looking to hire somebody or if you are looking to be hired somewhere, this is your chance to mingle just before the before the dinner break at 7. And then we have another speaker up after the break. Sorry, I can't read my slides here. On observability in AWS with Mohammed Nabulsi. Sorry about that. So it looks like we've got a busy night. Hopefully we won't keep anybody too much past 8 o'clock. Usually pretty good at finishing these things on time, but again, we haven't done one for a while, so we'll see how we go. So the format for tonight, obviously, we'll have our presenters come up. If you do want to ask questions of the presenters, please don't interrupt them during their presentation. It just disrupts the night, gets in the way of their flow, that sort of stuff. Please save your questions for the end. And if possible, please ask them either in the YouTube chat, which you're not watching, but you people who can't see me when I'm pointing at the camera, ask in the YouTube chat, or please ask on Slack. Now, the reason we do this is so that we give both audiences the opportunity to participate tonight. So even if you can't make it in person, or you don't feel comfortable coming in for an in-person event just yet, you can still participate. You can still ask questions. Once the presenter has finished speaking, I'll come up and ask the questions on your behalf from those channels. Yeah, I just went through that. Cool. We use the same channels for feedback, or you can come up and see us in person if you like. And we'll do some introductions in just a moment. Especially with the running of tonight, we, as I said and repeated, and I'm going to keep repeating, haven't done this for a while, so we're a bit rusty. So if you have any suggestions on ways we could do things better, we're always welcome to hear that. Now, these events we can't put on without our sponsors, especially so now that we need venues again and we need catering and drinks and everything else that comes with it. So a big thank you to our gold sponsor, CMD, who is hosting us here tonight. And our two silver sponsors, Versant and Sevo. Thank you to everybody for your support throughout the last couple of years as well. And now that we're back in person, look forward to continuing those relationships. So a little bit about who we are first before we dive in. My name's Rob. I go by @Bok on Slack, and I'm usually @Bok with either a dash or an underscore on most social media platforms. Depends on when I joined in the naming gold rush for most platforms. And my co-host is Ian, who's sitting down the front. He'll be up here in a minute. We don't work for AWS. Ian works here at CMD, and I work for a different company. But we're just members of this community, the same as you. Like, we're not here as a mouthpiece for Amazon or anything like that. We're just members of the community. So this is a user group for the community by the community, and as such, we welcome all views on AWS. The best way to ask questions tonight or to keep in touch with the rest of the community is via our Slack team. It's somewhere in the north of 800 or 900 people on there. And it can get busy during the day. It can also be quiet some days, but in general, it's a great place to ask any questions if you need help with anything. There's a jobs channel for posting jobs, volunteers channel for getting involved in the running of these nights. And we have a couple of other different channels around AWS outages, which gets busy whenever AP Southeast 2 goes down, for example, and an announcements channel as well, where we discuss new things that are up and coming. And we do need help to run these events. Obviously we need speakers. Finding speakers is the hardest thing about putting these events on, and it's usually left to the last minute to try and dig somebody out. So if you do have an interest in presenting, even if you've never presented before and would like to give it a go for the first time, we're here to help to get you to do that. We're more than happy to go over slides with you or give you some pointers and help you on your way to present. Now, it doesn't have to be a polished quality presentation. It could be a 10-minute lightning talk on some cool tool that you found or some new API that was just released with AWS. I won't spoil the news. Is that even in the news? I don't know. Either way, always looking for speakers, large or small, professional, not professional, doesn't matter. A lot of the best talks that we get are just off the cuff, people talking about something they find really interesting and are really passionate about, and that's how we all learn. Sponsorship we're not looking for right now, but we will be talking about that later in the year. And we're always looking for volunteers. Like these rooms take time to set up, we help putting catering out, that sort of stuff. As I said, there's a volunteers channel on Slack. If you're interested, jump on there. Now, we only have one other upcoming event that we will probably speak to for tonight, and that is the summit dates have been announced again, and it's online only again this year. I don't think registration was open just yet when I checked yesterday, but there's a register your interest button on the website if you want to go and do that. But again, yeah, May 18th, May 19th of this year is the, what are we calling it? The Australia and New Zealand Summit, no longer the Sydney Summit. And with that, that's me done. We'll hand over to Ian and JN for the news. Yes, this one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, people, you don't get to see my calendar and so Slack messages. Cool. So that went very smooth and not at all more difficult than doing these things online. As Rob said, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Really glad to see so many of you actually showed up. So go you. Why is this the wrong slide?
It's not the right side.
And now we've got the right slides as well. Cool. So let's talk about what is new in a lot of AWS in the past month. Finally in Sydney. I'm really looking forward to calling this finally in Melbourne later this year. But finally in Sydney, we have Net64 and DNS64. Jen, I think you prepared a whole bunch of notes about this.
Some notes. Yeah, it's all about IPv6. So, AWS has been pushing quite a lot of IPv6 in different environments, and especially in VPCs. So you can have now IPv6 only instances inside your VPC. but they need to be able to communicate with the rest of the world with still in IPv4 somehow, or maybe even on-prem. So AWS invented the NAT64 and the DNS64 product. We need to be enabled on the subnet, and net gateway, you don't have to do anything. It can be private or public, and you need to enable the DNS64. You will resolve that IP to IP4, goes to the NAT gateway, and then send you to an IPv4 environment. It can be enabled or disabled, like I said, on the subnet, and there is no separate configuration for the NAT gateway. That's very useful if you want to, for example, be all IPv6 in cloud, in VPC, for Kubernetes, for example, and having an IPv4 on-prem through Direct Connect. So you can communicate back, and all the IP will be hidden behind that NAT IPv4 IP to communicate back to on-prem. So yeah, very good to have that in Sydney.
Yep. Cool.
The one you like? Serverless?
Serverless. Also, I think a lot of people may have been happy with the top one here on the list. 10 gigabytes of ephemeral storage. So far, your Lambda functions could only use, I believe, 500 megabytes of storage in /temp. And now you can use 10 gigabytes, that especially if you're running machine learning models or anything that uses a lot of data on them. This is really, really nice. And I believe it's been a long time coming. It's been promised for a very long time at least.
It's been, so 10 gig container image support, 10 gig memory function, and now 10 gig ephemeral for Lambda. That's pretty cool. There is a cost though, it's not free. So everything over the 512, AWS will charge you. It's very little. I tried to do some calculation, but even if you run your Lambda or many Lambda for 24 hours on 10 gig, that would cost you a third of a cent. So it's not that great that there is a cost, but that is very, very minimal, and you can do that. So now you have many function with Lambda. You can have EFS attached for accessing on-prem and that storage. You could have S3 or now ephemeral for 10 gig. So pretty cool.
Yep. Very nice. Other things, .NET 6 support in Lambda. It's nice if you're using .NET. Always good to have newer versions. But the other one that I quite liked here is you can now share test events between developers. So in the past, it always felt like if somebody created test events for your Lambda function, you couldn't use them unless, well, only the person who created them used them. Now you can more easily use the same things to test it, which is always a nice thing.
It's more about collaboration between developers, so you can reuse these tests as well. So it's pretty good. Principal org ID as well for Lambda. That's very important for people who want to run cross-account Lambda function. They can authorize now with the whole org. That's a good improvement, and I think that principal org ID going to be seen in other product in IAM soon as well. That's very useful for large enterprise.
Yep. Cool. On the container side, if you use ECS Anywhere, and again, I do a call, if anybody uses ECS Anywhere, please let me know. I'm interested. It's a cool product. I just don't know anybody who uses it. So I'd love to hear a use case. But you can now use it with Windows hosts as well. If that was what you were waiting for.
Yeah. So you need an ECS agent, you need an SSM agent, all of that on-prem on your workload. You can use H2, 2016, 19, or 22 as Windows. But then you can use, Windows on-prem with containers. So, and with ECS for orchestration, which is interesting. So, yeah.
Yep. The other one I liked here is with the fault injection simulator. It now supports task level faults for ECS. So FIS is basically for chaos engineering. Basically, you can test what happens when things fail, and now you can do that at a task level instead of having to shut off a whole node, which is great for those tests you never want to do. But you should do.
And then you have the warm pool as well. Now it's supported by ECS as well, which is good. Like you have a pre-initialized EC2 instance that are ready to be quickly put in your pool to be able to scale faster. So that's you just need to enable the ECS warm pool check environment, and then you can start using that. And ECS will make sure that there is no workload that goes to this node until they have been put into service. So it's good.
Yep. Let's move on to the DevOps zone. So, for those of you who've been with the meetup for a long time,
we have a favorite listener who love Corito, so we always mention to him.
Yeah.
It's Corito 18 today.
Yay. Cool. Also, there is chatbot that now allows you to actually manage your resources from Slack. Whether or not this is a good idea, I'll leave up to you.
Yeah. So you can, from Slack, run CLI command to your AWS account. That looked a bit dangerous.
I'm sure nothing could possibly go wrong.
Just a different form of chaos engineering.
Yep.
But I mean, you can run system manager automation runbooks. You can run CLI command, but all managed still by IAM behind. So you can still really be very granular what people can run in there. And automation runbook is a good idea, I think. That way, at least you control what they can do and perform.
Yep. Proton got support for Terraform as GA. This was announced at reInvent, I believe.
Yeah. So that's GA. Yeah.
Again, Proton is not a service. I am quite sure what it's there for.
I haven't seen the use case yet, but it seems to be very complicated and a lot of moving parts, and trust AWS to do the right thing for you.
Yeah. But basically, you can now put Terraform on top of it for that extra abstraction layer on top of your abstraction layer.
Yeah.
Did you want to have anything about the others?
Or upconfig feature flag, similar type of product that you can enable a flag in your application configuration without having to deploy code, and then when you flick the flag, then your application will change. It's safer feature management, but usually big company will do it outside this with different CI/CD pipeline tooling or CD tooling. So it's an add-on. It's GA as well.
It's still good to have.
Yeah.
Cool. On the security side, we've got improvements on detective, a better search to help with root cause analysis. I haven't used this yet. I haven't had the pleasure to need to do a root cause analysis since this was announced, and I hope I don't have to use this for a very long time.
But it's supporting now wildcard characters, which is great because before it didn't, and then you can CIDR notation as well. So if you do 10.10.0/16, it will search all the IP into that range. That's quite useful. You don't have to know that the exact search. So much more available to search into flow logs, CloudTrail, and GuardDuty information.
Yep. Running a bit late, so let's speed this up a bit. Post-quantum ciphers, more new ones are supported. Wonderful name, but actually that is apparently what they are called.
Yeah, well, it's a round 3 selection, so it's not standard yet, but the NIST program trying to find a standard, and then so that's a round 3, and now we're supporting that through TLS. It's about exchanging keys fast enough for Quantum not be able to decrypt your traffic in TLS at the same time.
Yep. But let's move on to some other cool stuff. So
you love new instances?
New instance types. Have fun puzzling out what these do.
Oh, it's easy. I, D, N, and E. So
yep.
I, Intel, D, SSD, N, network, and E, enhanced memory. Easy. So we have many 64, 128 CPU up to 2 terabytes of memory for the X2 IDN, and then up to 32 extra large with 128 vCPU and 4 terabyte memory. So it's targeted at SAP HANA and HPCs, basically. Not something we can use every day, but very expensive instances, but very powerful as well. So that's cool.
Yep. And in good news, for RDS, two major things there. There's the new multi-AC deployment option. This was pre-announced a while back. Basically, this allows you to, right now, multi-AC for RDS means you've got your master instance running, and in a different availability zone, you've got an extra instance that gets synced, but that you can't use for anything other than spice up your bill. This way...
Or DR as well. I mean, 1 minute failover.
Yeah. It does DR. That's the whole reason for it, obviously. But this new method allows you to run 2 read-only...
Standby?
No, they're not standby. 2 read-only instances in different ACs. And it can fail over to those. But you can use them in the meantime as read-only endpoints as well. So they actually become useful.
So you have one primary, and AWS call it, 2 readable standby database instances who can be accessed through an endpoint, which is managed by AWS as well. So a bit like Aurora. I mean, it seems to be they have copied the model Aurora, but you need Postgres 13.4 and MySQL 8.0.28 to be able to do that. So that's very good improvement.
Yep.
3 node.
And the other big thing with RDS is that somebody at AWS is starting to figure out that T3 and T4 instances exist and can be used in a free tier.
They still have hardware, plenty of T2s with the
unfortunately, instances still are only free tier with T2s.
Yeah.
But at least now with RDS, I don't know why the T3 is there, but the T4G is obviously faster and stuff, but use that as well.
Yeah, so you can have ARM as well in the free tier with the T4G macro instances. And they're 2 vCPU instead of 1 as well, so pretty cool.
And the other big thing I would want to call out here is the customer carbon footprint tool, which shows you how much carbon you're using in your AWS account. Basically, this is an environment thing, and it's really good to see that this is here. I've dealt with customers in the past who were trying to figure out what their environments were using. Now you can just look at the tool and get a breakdown.
Yeah, so AWS has been pushing for that. It's part of the well-architected framework now. They added that sustainability framework for that. And on average, 88% carbon saving by running in cloud and instead of running on-prem, especially in Victoria where we have a lot of carbon power done from coal. So the goal of AWS is reaching 2025 with 100% renewable energy. So more in cloud, more CO2 saving.
Yep. I think that's all we've got time for. So one quick shout out for something that's not on the list that came up, was discovered overnight, more or less. It might make some people happy, but it looks like the SDKs got updated with an API call to delete accounts. So if you have ever run into this, you know you're really happy with that.
Yeah. So it's an add-on to organization and part of the API. We might be able to delete account quite easily now.
Yep. It's not officially announced yet.
We'll see what happens. It's a merge request on GitHub for the API.
Part of the org, or you still need to detach them from the org?
We don't know. We don't know yet. If you have a look at the Twitter, there is a merge request of the API. Yeah.
Where do you turn up? Just buffer or?
We'll just take that offline, talk about that real quick.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right, so you can see me again now. Hello. Our first presentation of the night is from Matt Gillard. Or Matthew, sorry. Matthew. Matt, Matt is a lead consultant for Contino based in Melbourne. He is also an AWS community builder and AWS ambassador, lots of titles. He is an advocate of the cloud operating model and using DevOps practices as a means of providing accelerated business outcomes. While he has been involved in many enterprise scale cloud migrations, his real passion, however, is helping developers understand new ways of working with serverless and other platform abstractions that increase their delivery velocity. Very excited about that last one. What have we got? Yeah, no, I haven't pushed it over yet.
Right.
There you go.
Hang on,
You're right.
slideshow. Okay. Wow. It's people haven't done this in a while. All right. So, yep, my name's Matt Gillard. I'm at Matt Gillard on most things. I'll just make sure the mic's there. This presentation is kind of a result of some work I did last year for a customer around their security posture. And it was something, yeah, it's quite interesting the things you can do behind the scenes on AWS using EventBridge, for example. So how many, I'll start with a couple of questions. How many people run organisations with more than 10 accounts? And how many have them in a pristine condition with perfect SCPs, with OUs, where people can't do anything that they're not allowed to do? And you're confident, hand on heart. And how many of you have the new world where everything is going towards perfect, but you still have an old world of legacy when you started using cloud? Yeah. So a lot of large organisations fit into that area, and this is sort of a solution that can help in that scenario. SCPs are great for hard controls, for things that you want to stop, but you can't do them for everything, right? But you can detect everything because you can use APIs. So you can effectively detect things using AWS config, which feeds into Security Hub. So that's what this is about. And I have an example, and I'm going to pray to the demo gods that works at the end. So the goal we have is, so the takeaway that I want you to take from this presentation today is Security Hub allows you to build a remediation capability to help meet your cloud security compliance requirements in an automated manner. So your security team, they come to you with the clipboard, the checklist, every week. You don't want to do that manually. You want to, the things that you can automate, you should automate. And even though you can't do it in the console, you can wire things up to perform this function. So we're going to just have a quick review of options around AWS security. I'll cover considerations that you think about for your environment and your developers around security controls. It's all quite high level because we don't have that much time, and I want to get to the demo. I'll give you an overview of Security Hub for those that don't understand what that is or haven't used it before. I'll cover the architecture, so that there's an architecture diagram like all good solutions have. I'll put up some sample events with some things, with the important things so you can see a visual of what I'm talking about, and then we'll do a live demo. So security controls are there to keep your data safe, make sure bad people can't get in effectively, right? And make sure, and least privilege, to make sure that people can only do what they're supposed to do. And you want to allow your developers, customers, your customers, if you're running a platform, are usually developers or business or whoever. You want them to be able to innovate at speed safely. You could make everything super secure and they can't do anything except by raising requests, and that doesn't help anyone. You want to automate the heavy lifting so they can build quickly and be security compliant. So one way to do that is to provide tooling for them. If they use Terraform, CDK, you can build guardrails around those sorts of things to make sure that they deploy things in a secure, compliant manner. As I said before, not all controls can be enforced via SCPs. There's a lot of things you can't do in SCPs, which is quite frustrating. There's a lot of things you can do, but there's a lot of limitations, especially the character limits and the number of policies in an OU and that sort of thing. So you want to shift things out of SCPs where possible and just keep them for the things that make sense. And you want to be able to detect and remediate problems at scale. So I'm thinking sort of, tens to hundreds of accounts. The SCPs we've covered. So there's many security services in AWS. I'm just covering the ones related to this presentation today. And I think they're probably the most important ones. So SCPs we've covered. CloudTrail obviously logs your who's doing what, when, where, from where. AWS config is a critical element because it can track resource history. It uses CloudTrail to feed that, and you can see what changed when and by who. And it's a prerequisite for Security Hub anyway. EventBridge is not a security service, but it's here because it's the glue that you can automate, things. For example, the classic example is guard duty. Detect something bad. This is the demo I've seen multiple times by AWS people. And it can take that EC, say it's to an EC2 instance. You can automate taking that off the network and do isolating it, taking an image, and resolving that automatically when someone can come in later and manually review what's happening there. So EventBridge is also key for Security Hub auto remediation as well. IAM roles obviously are important. So you need to have enough permission for people to do their job, but not too much, as they have to keep raising requests to, do things. So it's a balancing act there, right, around roles and least privilege. And then the last thing is Security Hub, which basically, at its core, takes a bunch of security standards and gives you a single pane of glass view of all your accounts and your security posture. So some Security Hub terms. We've got a control. So security control is basically a standard that you have to meet. And a rule is automatic criteria. Usually you'll have a rule for a control. Sometimes you might have multiple rules to deal with a control. An insight in Security Hub is a collection of findings which are related. For example, you might have an insight for your accounts, and you can rate your accounts, top to bottom, how many, which one's bad and which one's good based on the number of findings. There's multiple insights that come out of the box. I'll quickly show it up at the end, but you can also create your own. A security check turns into a finding. So a security check, for example, in AWS config performs a particular thing. Might check if a key is rotated or not. If it's not over, if it hasn't been rotated in a certain period of time, it'll turn into a finding and it'll find its way into Security Hub. The AWS security finding format is, I'll show you that also, is basically a standard JSON document of what a finding comes into Security Hub as. And then each finding has a workflow status, so you can, from an ops perspective, and a state for that record. So when it's dealt with, it goes into an archive state. Security Hub integrations. There's Guard Duty, Inspector, all those services out of the box integrate into Security Hub if you enable it. And there's also a bunch of security frameworks that you could, I think there's PCI DSS, CIS, and foundational best practices. So, and you can take those security standards, choose which rules you want in your organisation, because you might have some that you don't need. Not everyone needs all those rules, so you usually have to filter it for your specific needs and your other compensating controls that might be dealt with another way. And then you take action with the results in Security Hub. So that's what the console looks like. It's pretty simple. It's a little bit quirky to navigate, but ultimately all your findings end up in the middle, and then you can add filters to search for what you're looking for. So to set up Security Hub, I just put this in here to have a little rant about enabling services across organisations is a little bit inconsistent. AWS config, you get a stack, CloudFormation stack, which you have to deploy for a stack set, so that's fine, I guess. Security Hub service, it's pretty much a one-click for each region. So once you've got a delegated account, it's pretty easy to enable. What I haven't put on here is, so that enables across the organisation and one-click enrolls all your accounts into that service. So Security Hub will be enabled on all your member accounts and then feed data back to your delegated security account. What I haven't put on here is the hard one. I had to deal with Inspector v2 towards the end of last year. As of January, you had to either click every account in your organisation to enable it, or contact AWS support and they'll give you a script. So if anyone's listening, please fix that from AWS, because it's unacceptable in my view to be so complicated to enable a service which is supposed to make your life easier. But other than that, Inspector v2, definitely use it because it does all your container scanning and feeds all your data back to Security Hub. But this presentation isn't about Inspector. So the architecture of auto remediation. Can you see my thing? Oh, cool. So what happens is, in your enrolled accounts, in over here, number one, a deviation gets reported back to your centralised Security Hub, and you'll say you've got security account on the left. That's what that big box is on the left, and on your right is all your member accounts. So your security check comes in, deviation of finding is created into Security Hub. Then you've got an event bridge rule which looks for Security Hub findings that appear. Obviously with Event Bridge you have all these events flying around in your accounts that you never see unless you turn on the rule to expose that event so you can do something with it. So there's a rule which I'll show you an example of in a second. Grab that rule, send it to a Lambda auto remediation function, which actually performs so that function lives in the security account. So all your auto remediation functions should live in a centralised account where your users don't have access, so they can't disable your checks, and also keeps all your code central, so it's easy to deploy. So that function then assumes a role to the account which generated the finding, performs the remediation, and sends a message to Security Hub, which is number 6 there, that it's been completed. So in this example, there's a rule in Security Hub that I've turned on, which is ensure CMK auto rotation is enabled. So this is a favourite from security people, that they like to see that checkbox ticked. If people have ClickOps access to the console, or by default that's not turned on. So a lot of the time these findings will filter their way up to the top of the list, especially if you have lots of keys. And if people haven't switched on that check, it's a pretty minor thing, but it is an easy one to fix, an easy one to show progress that you've fixed that particular problem. but there's a lot of other things that you could auto-remediate as well. But that's just the example I've chosen today because it's easy to demo. So an example security finding event is, as on the screen there, it's pretty much a standard format. There's a detailed type security hub findings imported, which you have to select on. And then there's the title of the particular control, which is in the title field there. And then the compliance status is failed. So that's the event that comes through Event Bridge and gets sent to your Lambda function. So you can get all the account information out, which you have to assume role to. So obviously with that role needs to be deployed to all your accounts. So every remediation function would have a corresponding role deployed to all the accounts that it assumes via cross account with least privilege permissions to fix that particular item. And the corresponding event bridge rule is this to collect that message that was emitted by Security Hub. So obviously you've got the title there. And the only thing I'll note is that to avoid a recursive problem of running your Lambda multiple times when you update the finding, you need to put a check for, I make a note, the Lambda function, when it says the finding is fixed, I update the finding with a note to say it's been fixed by this function at this time. So I've just got to make sure that note doesn't exist. If that's not there, then things can go in a loop and you probably end up with an expensive Lambda build. And there's three main parts to the, even though it's a simple single API call to fix the particular auto key rotation issue. There's three parts to the Lambda function, right? So you've got to assume the role in the spoke account from your security account. So that's the code to do that. It's kind of boilerplate standard stuff to get a temporary key. There's perform the task to actually, so you've got to check that the key is enabled because you can't, one thing I found is you cannot turn on rotation for a disabled key. The API returns an error, so check that it's enabled. If it's enabled, enable key rotation. So done. So it's as simple as that, because remember you get the resource name and everything, so you know exactly what it is that you're going to be updating in that account. And then when you're done, you call batch update findings in Security Hub. There used to be an API call called update findings. That's been deprecated, and now there's batch update findings, which is a slightly different format. And then that's where I've added the note. So when you update the finding, the note gets added to the finding to say it's been resolved. Now we will do a demo, I hope. So this is the console. That's my Security Hub account. And then this is my member account. And that's the rule that's saying my key is currently compliant. So what I'm going to do is turn off the checkbox to say auto-rotate the key, and I'll save that. And then I'll, rather than wait 12 hours, because that would be quite boring, I will re-evaluate this rule, which forces, so normally it would, there's a 12, for this particular check, there's a 12-hour schedule. But in this case, I've forced it to evaluate now. So this should become non-compliant shortly, like now. So that rule's non-compliant. It's going to be compliant pretty quickly because the Lambda function will kick off, but we'll see a new finding in here. There it is there. Oh no, that's the resolved one. Oh no, we've got titles. Takes a little second to come in.
filter out resolved.
Yeah, that's what it is. You see that the checkbox is back. I've just gone back to the key. There it is there. A minute ago. So that's the, so if I click on the title, you get information about the finding, that it failed just now, and then there's a note here to say key rotation has been successfully enabled for the key, and then in 12 hours time when it runs again, it'll archive that finding, and we're all happy. So AWS config allows you to set different periods for that particular rule. Obviously, the more frequently it runs, you get charged for it, and you also get charged for Security Hub findings. So I think I'm being charged $1 a day at the moment for an organisation of 3 accounts, but it's I'll be turning it off after the demo. And I just wanted to quickly show you the CloudWatch logs from the function. So the function ran, there we go, 656. Is that a bit small? And it, that's all the logs from the function running to validate the role was assumed and Security Hub was successfully updated. And that's, so I wanted to show you the, this is the full ASFF format for Security Hub findings. It's quite long and verbose, but it gives you a lot of information about the particular finding, where it failed, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. This talk was originally going to show how to do custom AWS config rules too, but obviously there's not enough time to talk about that. Maybe that can be a subject for another session. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. Any questions?
Thank you. We don't seem to have any questions on any of the channels.
I've got one.
We're supposed to ask it in Slack chat.
Oh,
Sorry.
You can do the remediations through AWS config itself with the same account.
Yeah. So when I was evaluating, so the question was, you can do auto remediation through AWS config as well. So yes, you can.
Well, it's not a Lambda function, it's an SSM document that you need to.
Yeah, actually, I don't know.
Yeah,
It is SSM, yeah. So that's the thing I forgot to mention. So with the event bridge rule, I'm calling a Lambda function, but there's actually, so the thing I did mention, there's a quick start from AWS, which has a whole heap of examples around this, which was released this year, I think early this year, or late last year. And you can do SSM documents. I think there's an SSM document to do something similar to this as well. So it's really up to you, your organisation, what you want to do around that. But the reason why I like centralising it in Security Hub, because I found it was too hard to add a remediation to an AWS config rule that all pre-existed. So if you've got an organisation with accounts that have been there for a while, with the conformance packs installed for AWS config, it's messy to update those later, I found, and just couldn't scale. The easiest way that I found to deal with it was just let everything go into Security Hub. Even if you don't use Security Hub like intensely, pull out the rules that interest you or your security team, or the highest priority ones that you want to fix automatically, and deal with it through there. And that way you can deploy all your functions or SSM documents in that one account, and you just have to deploy roles to all the accounts to assume.
It's more secure as well.
And it's more secure.
Yeah, people only start, they can't modify stuff.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and AWS config provides a whole heap of managed rules, but you can actually do anything you want using the RDK. That's a subject for another discussion. It's a little bit involved, but I managed to all the examples that you find online are for a single account, but I don't. No one does single accounts, so that's not helpful. So it turns out you can centralize your AWS config remediations, which are lambdas effectively. Checks, not checks. AWS config checks using a lambda in a central account, and it can do across it does a service, config service, calls that in the central account, performs the check, and sends the results back to the original account, and then that can flow into Security Hub as well. So there's basically anything you can do with an API, you can effectively automate. So yeah, I think it's good, and I don't think it's used enough. I think not a lot of people, because it's not in the console and you can't touch it, people don't realise you can do it. The quick start that AWS provide is very comprehensive, but not many people like deploying quick starts in their account because they don't quite need to understand what you're deploying. So that's why I like looking at first principles and seeing how this works, and then work out the best way to deploy that into your environment. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much, Matt.
No worries. Oops.
function for our business unit. If the keywords such as DevOps, systems engineering, AWS, CI/CD, GitLab, Linux, all these keywords make any sense to you, or they resonate strongly with you, please come and speak to me. So we have got a bunch of open positions at the moment. And also I should add, if you happen to have a strong development background, but you are thinking of transitioning to the other side, the dark side, then also come and please speak to me. We're going to have a lot of fun. The team has a really strong and really caring culture, I must add. Cool. That would be it, I guess.
Yep, cool. So if you are looking for work, keep an eye on who's speaking and go and steal them during the break. Matt, you were.
Oh yeah, we're hiring. Casino's always hiring. I think Golang is something we're looking for as well. Principal consultants, pre-sales, lead consultants, senior consultants, DevOps. It's the standard stuff. DevOps. So and developers. I think we've got some JavaScript roles too. So if
Node.js as well.
Oh, Node.js as well. Yes. Pretty much everything. Everyone wants everything. So, and automation pipelines, CI/CD. So everyone wants
Terraform.
Yeah, and Terraform is good as well. So yeah, we do a lot of Terraform. Unfortunately, my talk had Terraform in the title, but I didn't get to show you Terraform. So sorry about that.
It was in one of the tabs in VS Code.
Yeah, I know, I
That's-
didn't get to that.
That's about as close as you get, I suppose.
Ran out of time.
Was there anyone else that was, yeah, down the back there?
I was at SIBO, I'm here from culture. We are currently looking for people of all levels with all backgrounds, AWS, specifically really interested in data, DevOps, anything cloud, AWS. If you've got any sort of experience and you want to be a part of a team that will answer all of your questions, no matter how stupid they are, and believe me, I would know. I've spent about 4 hours with each of the consultants asking these stupid questions. If you want to be in an environment that's really going to help you take to the next step and encourage you to learn and encourage you to grow, that's a good place to go. That's a good thing about SIBO. But yeah, if you've got any AWS experience, or you want to just learn more about SIBO, feel free to shout out.
Sivo is also one of our sponsors as well,
Yes,
so they're
we're a sponsor.
well engaged in the community. Yeah, one over here.
Hey, so I'm Michael, CTO and co-founder at Endlon. So we're a white native startup, seed stage at the moment, focused on the oil and gas industry. Basically, we design most of the wells here in Australia and sort of looking to do field planning internationally and in Australia as well. Looking for full stack developers, TypeScript, Python, Stack, focused on optimization, all in AWS, highly serverless, container-based sort of space as well. So just looking for someone killer across the entire board to help build out the team. We're just building for at the moment and scaling quickly. So thanks.
Cool. I think we have one down here as well.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Lincoln. I am head of BD at a consultancy called Mantless. So about 40, 50 strong at the moment, but we actually have about 15 open positions. We're looking for cloud engineers, senior cloud consultants. We're also after, I'm actually trying to build up my sales team at the moment too, so anybody who wants to switch to the actual dark side and sell stuff to those people, I'm the one that you want to talk to. But if there's anything that you're looking for, come talk to me. I'll have to talk you through what we do. We have in-town lunches every Wednesday. It's really great to get the whole team together. As many of us as are here, we do actually have consultants sort of all up the seaboard and even some people overseas as well. But yeah, it's a really great culture, a really great company, and yeah, you welcome any conversations with anyone who wants to have a chat.
All right, we're back. Conversation stopping. Cool. Awesome, thank you. All right, so we have up for our second. Is that echoing all the way through? It is echoing all the way through. Hang on a second. Let me turn that off. Wherever my mouse is. There we go. No echo now. All right, so back with our second presentation. We've got observability in AWS with Mohammed. Mohammed is a specialist solutions architect for observability at AWS. He's passionate about helping customers build observability strategies and achieve better operations. So without further ado, hand it over.
Right, cool. Hello, everyone.
Just stand behind the
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, okay. And we need to stand also in the dark side.
Yes.
Okay. So welcome, everyone. And first, I would like to start with thanking the organizers for putting the effort here, as well as thanking you guys for staying so late to hear and discuss about observability. I am Mohammed. I am a specialist solution architect for observability. I've been at AWS for more than 6.5 years. I'm based in Sydney. I started, when I started at AWS, I started in premium support in the networking team. I'm sure you all deal with support whenever you have any questions or problems. And after that, I became a generalist SA, and then I moved into the specialist SA role for observability. So the agenda for today is we'll talk in general about what observability is, because I think it's important to be on the same page. We need to understand what observability and what it means before we can dive into the other practical aspects of observability. And then we can see what AWS has to offer in that space. And hopefully I'll have some minutes in order to run a small demo. Before we get started, I would like to understand a little bit about you guys. May I know how many developers are here or software engineers? Okay, and how many operation engineers or SREs? Okay, perfect. How many deal with CloudWatch on a daily basis? Interesting. Okay, perfect. Thanks, everyone. It's quiz time, and we haven't get started yet, right? So let's have some questions. What's O11Y? Who can tell us what that means? Observability. Good. Okay, that's the first answer. Okay, but where did it come from? What's this number 11?
It's the amount of letters in between the O and Y.
Perfect. Okay, so we have great answers already. And 11 is the number of letters in between. I'm mentioning this because you might see this somewhere, and it's great if you can then know what it means. Now, in the title, there is a missing space, missing symbol, sorry, in that space. Are we going to say equal or not equal? Not equal. Perfect. So observability isn't monitoring. They are not the same thing. There is a misconception, and some people use it interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. So let's understand first what monitoring is. Monitoring tells you whether the system works, and it has been there for years. People just were interested in knowing if the system is working fine or not. Whereas observability lets you ask questions why it's not working. So it can give you more insights. It can give you more details about why the system isn't working. And just keep in mind, when we will be looking now in the next slides about the pillars of observability, we're not just looking into dumping telemetry data of specific domain into some kind of storage or some kind of tool. That's not the goal. We don't want just to collect data and throw them. We want to be able to stitch the different components together. Otherwise, with the modern applications and workloads that we are today using, it will be very hard to make use of this information. And on the other hand, the value of observability of a system is proportional to the business value of your system. Some people might say, I am tolerant with a 1 hour downtime. Okay? Some people say, I can't afford 1 minute downtime. In the latter case, observability means higher importance to your system. And the reason I asked about your roles, guys, is because observability should be the focus for mainly developers and operation engineers. They do their usual work, but they rely on observability a lot. Now, some people come and say, okay, I want to build an observability strategy. How do I do this? There is no one size fits all. You have to define your priorities, define your business objectives, and move backward from there. For example, last week, I had a customer asking, okay, we started now using dashboards, and we implemented a lot of things on AWS. Which metrics should I now monitor? I can't answer that question, and no one in the world can answer that question except you, because things that you need to monitor depends on your business objectives and your goals. That is, for example, is eCPU utilization of 80% good or bad? There's no answer. It's good if you want to run your resources and utilize them efficiently. Why should you run your servers at 30%? Now, when is it bad? If 80% starts giving you errors, start giving you latencies in your system, then we can say it's bad. And that's why thresholds, when we want to define thresholds in our alarms, people used to, how did people use usually to define their thresholds? They start with something, see, okay, are we getting errors? Is anybody complaining? Okay, now we can lower the threshold. Try again. But that's the old-fashioned method. We need to understand first our workload. What are our objectives, and then define what we want to achieve. Now, moving on, let's look at the main pillars of observability. Pillar number 1, metrics. What metrics are? They are numeric representation of data measured over intervals of time. CPU utilization is the most common one. How does it help us? It helps me identify if something has changed in the health of my system. And as I said, there is no one CPU utilization value that is good or bad. You know how good and bad your system is, and then if you notice a change in that pattern, then it's a bad thing. The second pillar is logs. We all know logs. They are text representations of your events, for example, and they are immutable. You store them, and if you notice something in the metrics, you jump into the logs to find exceptions, error messages, all of this stuff. The third pillar is the traces. And this is unfortunately the most neglected pillar. I see customers relying mainly on metrics. and secondly on logs. Not everyone uses traces, unfortunately. So traces has become now more and more important, because what do they tell us? They are a representation of the request from end to end. If I am the user, if I am the client, and I send a request to your workload or your server, and I get the response, it has gone through many components until I received back the answer. If there is a problem, how can we identify where is the bottleneck? Neither metrics nor logs can tell us where the problem might be. Traces will show me the latency at every component, and then I can not only use traces to know the problem, because I need to rely on metrics and logs as well. So observability relies on these three main pillars. And at AWS, I'm sure you already are familiar with these services. For metrics, we have CloudWatch metrics. For logs, we have CloudWatch logs. And for traces, we have AWS X-Ray. These three tools represent the main three pillars in observability. Okay, now let's go into a little bit more details about the available features and service names. I'm not sure if you are already familiar with these, but let's start with the rectangle on the left side. So we have the three observability pillars: metrics, logs, and the traces. Now under metrics, we have the following features and services. We have CloudWatch alarms. And in CloudWatch alarms, we have multiple types of alarms. We have standard alarms. We have high-resolution alarms. We have machine learning-powered alarms. Anyone using machine learning-powered alarms? Cool, okay. So if you are not familiar with the concept of machine learning-powered alarms, I'll explain it to you because it's very important to understand. If we go back into the CPU utilization example, so let's say your email server, I don't know, or your authentication server, let's take that example. When all employees start their shift at 9 a.m. in the morning, it's normal that the CPU utilization of your authentication server spikes because everyone is logging in at the same time, right? But then it goes back to 30% the whole day. Now, how do you define the threshold in this case? If you say my threshold is 80%, then you will get an alarm in the morning. So what to do? We have machine learning powered alarms that understand the pattern of your metric that you are monitoring. And then it analyzes the history up to 14 days in the past and draws like a band around that usage. And if there is, if the metric usage goes above or beyond or below that band, it triggers. So in that case, you don't define a threshold, but you let the machine learning power alarm know what is good and what is bad. High resolution, I'm not sure if you're familiar with 1 second or 10-second metric, like the frequency of metrics, yeah, okay? So in that case, you can create high resolution alarms. We have composite alarms. Composite alarms are alarms of alarms, okay? So you might have, let's say you are the ISP at your city, and you're monitoring the routers of your users. If your users become offline, now your alarms will trigger. But is it a problem? No. What if users in multiple suburbs all become offline? Then it's a problem. So in that case, you build a composite alarm that monitors, for example, 5 alarms, 1 alarm to each suburb. And you define the condition, and or, whatever you want. If all of them go into alarm, that superior or that composite alarm will become an alarm state. Moving on into Metrics Explorer. So Metrics Explorer is a tag-based tool that enables you to filter, aggregate, and visualize your metrics by tags and resource properties. For example, you can have EC2 instances that have a tag of environment, and that environment can be prod or dev or whatever, and then you can explore and filter these automatically. We have querying capability, which is called Metrics Insights, which uses SQL-based engine, and you can build queries using SQL normal language to filter and analyze your metrics at scale. Next, we have metric streams. It has been there for a while. I'm sure many of you are using it, where you can stream near real-time. Sorry, we're talking here about metrics. So in metrics, this is new, where you can, similarly to logs streaming, you can stream your metrics to another destination, such as S3 buckets or Firehose data hose. And Firehose data hose, the Firehose data hose, you can send it then to another HTTP endpoint, whatever you want, which is a third-party tool, for example. Then we have metric math. In metric math, you can define a mathematical equation to calculate something across your metrics to get a new metric. For example, lambda errors, right? There is like no percentage, there is no metric that tells you the percentage of lambda errors. There is a metric that tells you how many invocations, and there is a metric that tells you how many errors. Now I divide this by that using a mathematical expression, and I get the percentage. Search expressions are a type of metric math, but you use it to add into a graph a new metric that you have created. Now moving on into the next column, which is logs. Obviously, you can store your logs in AWS in a reliable and durable way. You can also use logs insights to query your logs at scale, and you can select up to how many log groups, anyone knows, in one single query, maximum. I can select up to 20 log groups and execute my query against. Up to 20 log groups. You can have metric filters. Probably many of you are using it, where you can convert logs into metrics. So you define an expression to find, for example, the error word in your log records, and then create a custom metric out of it. Then we have streaming. Again, as I mentioned, you can stream your logs into other destinations for further analysis. We have the option to export your logs into an S3 bucket for backup or more cost-efficient way of storing it. The next column we have traces, which I defined earlier. So we have different SDKs that allow you to instrument your applications and send the traces. May I know if anyone is using already AWS X-Ray in their applications to send the traces? Yeah, cool. Okay, perfect. And then X-Ray is also integrated automatically into so many other AWS services, such as Lambda. So I advise you guys, if you work with Lambda, for example, it's just a checkbox where you say, allow this Lambda function to send my traces to AWS X-Ray. So these are the tools that help you with the main, achieve the observability with the main pillars. Now we have so many other features that help you with achieving more observability and more visibility. Let's look at them quickly. So we have application monitoring space. We have synthetics, where you can create canaries to monitor your APIs, to monitor your endpoints. They also integrate with CloudWatch metrics, and they integrate with CloudWatch logs. They also integrate with X-Ray to get more insights. We have RAM, real user monitoring, which shows you the performance from the client point of view. We have Evidently, which was released, I think, in last November, which can be used for doing feature flags, as well as A/B experiments. Moving on, we have Insights. So Insights are usually automated way of helping you gain more visibility into your workloads. So in that space, we have Container Insights, which aggregates, summarizes, and visualizes metrics and other telemetry data from your containerized applications running on ECS, running on EKS, or even Kubernetes on EC2, if you're doing that. Similarly, we have for Lambda functions, where you can get then OS deep in metrics about your Lambda functions. We have application insights, which integrates with AWS Launch Wizard. So it's like a wizard type of application monitoring, where you can then monitor applications running on EC2 and get automated dashboards for you. Contributor Insights. Contributor Insights finds the top N contributors of something, for example. It analyzes your logs and finds, for example, who are the top consumers of my API endpoint, for example. X-Ray Insights is another tool which uses machine learning in order to continuously analyze your traces, and then it generates incidents automatically for you, and these incidents get resolved automatically if the service finds that the incident isn't applicable anymore. For visualizing your telemetry data, we have Service Lens, which I hope to show you next in a small demo. So it integrates logs, metrics, and the traces into one place and shows you the components of your workload as nodes and the connectivity, between them as edges. We have dashboards, which are cross-account, cross-region. Some people don't know this, but just to let you know, guys, our dashboards are cross-account, cross-region. What I'm seeing a lot from customers recently is that everyone is creating a centralized monitoring account, and there is no need to jump into the spoke accounts in order to get insights about what's happening. From a single account, you can view information about all other accounts. Resource Health, which can automatically, which you can use to automatically explore the health and performance of your EC2 instances and visualize them in a nice way. It can give you information about the CPU and the memory if you have installed the CloudWatch agent, for example, for the memory. X-Ray Analytics is an interactive console dashboard where you can then compare two different sets of requests and display, for example, the response time, the delays, the latencies, and then get some more insights about these two different sets. From the tools perspective, we have the CloudWatch agent, which can send metrics and logs into CloudWatch. We have EMF, which is embedding metrics in logs. Anyone can guess or knows what EMF is and how it works? No? No one is using? Okay. So EMF is now very popular if you have high cardinality data. High cardinality data means that you have a big set of unique IDs, for example. Let's say you have 1 million users. Are you going to create a metric for each user? Doesn't work, right? So in this case, you have high cardinality data. So what do we do? The way is you can then add information into your log records in a specific format and send them into CloudWatch. CloudWatch receives these log records and notices that EMF type of data in it and extracts that information, converts it into metrics, and shows it as a custom metric. So in this case, it's a double win for you. You have a log record about a specific event, plus you have sent some telemetry metric information about that incident. This is EMF. And finally, we have the X-ray daemon, which you can use to relay traces into AWS X-ray service. So that was all I wanted to talk about. I'll take a couple of minutes more to show you a quick demo. What is the window? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so I have a workload running already in my account, and I'll jump quickly into the service lens. So you go to CloudWatch, and then you scroll down into application monitoring. You can find it the same here. It's available under X-ray traces because we have recently integrated X-ray with CloudWatch console. It's still, like, if you want, you can go still to X-ray. It's already there, but this is now the new experience that we recommend. Otherwise, you can go into service lens map. Let me drag it a little bit to the left side here. Okay, and here you can see my workload. I'll zoom out a little. Okay, you can see my workload consists of multiple components. And you can see on the left side, there are the clients. Now, if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see the different components that represent my workload. And you can see something here, for example, in orange color. There might be others in red. Okay? And these tell me that there is a problem. So what I can do then, I can look at my ECS container. If I click on that node, you can see these are the edges. It means it's communicating with these other components. And I can see like the error rate. I can see the latency, all of this stuff. You don't need to build this. It automatically comes for you guys. Okay? And then at the bottom, you can see the metrics. Okay, and if I have created alarms, I can see them here, and I can see the time, response time, distribution. So you can see some requests might have taken a little bit longer. For example, this one here. Okay, and you can see I have selected and dragged, and then activated a button here. So I can now jump into my traces that are related to that specific response time. And now it's analyzing it. It has pre-filled for me all the data. I don't need to do anything. And if we scroll down, I can have more insights into the response time distribution. And I can also show the duration distribution. And next, I can see then the traces that correspond to that high response time. You can see these are taking 3 seconds. And then I can click on that trace, for example, in order to see what's happening. I can see that trace had or went through 3 components, from client to the container to some remote service that we are calling. And if I go down, now I can see the segments. So a trace can pass through different components. Each component will have a segment for it. The trace is the whole request from end to end. And segments correspond to the different components. And you can see the latency of each. So I'm noticing that my ALB here seems to have taken maybe 3 seconds to finish my job. And if I go down, I can dive deeper into some additional information. And depending on your configuration, it can correlate automatically for you the log records that correspond to this trace. So you can see I am stitching metrics with logs with traces, all in one place. And this is being done automatically for me. When there is a problem, every second counts. And this is how you can then find issues quickly and then resolve them as fast as possible. We can talk for hours, but I don't want to delay you more, guys. I just wanted to show you a quick demo about service lengths, because for me, service lengths is a very important component. And it should be the center or the heart of your troubleshooting, from which you can then jump into the other components. I thank you very much for listening. I hope you have found this useful, and happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Just make sure we repeat the question first.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Does it integrate well with Event Bridge and also like DynamoDB?
So with which one, service lens?
Yeah, or the X-ray.
Okay, so the question is, can we integrate service lens or X-ray with Event Bridge or DynamoDB? So Event Bridge has many sources and many targets, and in the middle we have the rule, right? So you always have the source, you define your rule, and then you decide on the target. So service lens is just a visualization layer, okay, where you can put, where it shows the 3 pillars in one place. But in order to trigger rules, Event Bridge rules, alarms can trigger so many other things, like in logs, they can trigger traces. I'm sure Event Bridge also has X-ray as a trigger. So I assume yes, the answer. But DynamoDB is a database, right? And you can say store data in it, right? But I'm not sure how you would like to integrate metrics.
For example, DynamoDB streams like a trigger.
Okay, so in that case, we'll need to look into Event Bridge, because it's another service, and then we have so many sources, right? It might be there, I'm not sure, but we can look into it. Any other questions?
Well, I have 2 questions.
Sure.
I'm not sure if this is this concept. So, is there any observability about observability tools?
Observability about observability. Okay, great question. Yeah, why not? So in that case, what would you like to monitor? So the question was, is there observability about observability? Okay, so I would like to ask then a little bit more details, please. So in that case, what would you like to monitor, for example?
Like the status of these observability tools.
Yeah, okay. So in AWS, we have service health dashboards and APIs for it. If there is any impact or outage in any availability zone or in a region or in a specific location, it triggers, and then you can define a rule, I think, again, back to Event Bridge, where it notifies you about that outage.
So it would treat it as a resource like other.
Yeah, just treat it as the normal resource that you're having. Yeah.
Yeah, my second question is any new features in this area?
Any new features?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, are there any new features in this area? Yes, so many. But unfortunately, we can't, because they are in private beta, we can't talk about them publicly. If there is an NDA between the customer and AWS, we can talk about it, and we can allow list their account for these features. So if you feel you need more than what I have shown, and by the way, we have a little bit more, but I couldn't fit everything into one slide, and I wanted to make it as simple as possible and not to make it complicated. But yes, there are so many features which are going to become GA in this year. And if you're interested about participating in betas, please speak to us. Any other questions?
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's us done for our first event back. And it actually went well, I think. Only one technical glitch at the start, and that affected the online audience more than the in-room audience, so that's fine. That's all right. They've seen enough of me anyway over the last couple of years. Let's see where this switch is going to pop up on. I think it's going to pop up over there. Close enough. So a big thank you to our sponsors for tonight, CMD, Versant, and Civo. Thank you very much, everybody. Our next event is on the 27th of April, Wednesday the 27th of April, so the last Wednesday of the month as usual. Not 100% sure on the venue just yet, but as long as rules allow, we will be back in person again. Whether it's here or somewhere else will still be to be determined. So that's it. Thank you very much for coming.